Whenever you're ready. Just start up in the beginning, and when I go like that, welcome to Slave Revolt Radio, where you will get news that you can use. We want to start off right now with our headlines. Johannesburg building fire kills at least 73 people, including children. In South Africa, at least 73 people died in a massive fire torn through a five-story building in downtown Johannesburg that housed squatters living in cramped, makeshift conditions. Many of them were believed to be migrants. Officials say at least seven children are among the dead. Harrowing scenes showed scores of lifeless bodies lined up on the street as rescue teams continued to search for people. Witnesses and survivors described the chaos as people tried to flee the burning building. In fact, Kenny Bope said, and I quote, "The actual fire escape was closed. So the people, there were a lot of people, you know, a lot of people had to breathe the smoke. People suffocated, therefore. A lot of people died because of the smoke because there was a lot of pressure at the gate. Some of the gates were closed. The building was once an apartheid government checkpoint for black workers. The scarcity of affordable housing in Johannesburg has driven people to take shelter in unsafe, overcrowded, abandoned buildings, which often lack sewage, electricity, and other basic amenities. And it looks like you can't even get out of the damn thing. So there you go, you know. Um, Let us move on. The Biden administration announces the first 10 medications that will be subject to Medicare negotiations. The Biden administration released a list of the first 10 prescription drugs Medicare will now be able to negotiate prices on, which could lead to a savings of some $100 billion over the next decade. The price negotiation was established as part of 2022's Inflation Reduction Act and as a massive blow for Big Pharma, which has been fighting the plan in courts in at least 8 lawsuits. The drugs are used to treat diabetes, cancer, and heart disease, among other conditions. The, the White House said senior I want to share with you. Quote, "For years, Big Pharma blocked this. They kept prescription drugs prices high to increase their profits and extend patients on existing drugs to suppress fair competition instead of innovating, playing games with pricing so that they could charge whatever they can. But this is finally, we have we have had enough votes for a matter of one to beat Big Pharma. The negotiated prices will not take effect until 2026, and some drugs will remain exempted from further negotiations, including those which were approved for the FDA less than 9 years ago. This is not good enough. This is not good enough. I have a friend who fell out because he had diabetes and he was trying to take insulin, and they got crazy with the insulin. They started charging over $100 with the insulin, so he was trying to fudge and not take as much. He wound up in intensive care. My brother Arthur Banks. Now he, you know, this is what happens. This is called capitalism, okay? And no, American capitalism is not good enough for us. Let us move on. Tennessee Republicans vote once again to silence Representative Justin Jones. Do you know Justin Jones?
No.
Okay. Well, we had covered this already. And we wanted Justin Jones. We debated it on the air. Me and Tebow went back and forth because this is a touchy situation. Justin Jones and his colleague brought the demonstration right into the assembly hall, the legislation hall. Maybe it's conservative, maybe I'm wrong, but I tend to think that we should demonstrate in front of the hall. But I listened to Tebow, and he made the point, look, if they're not listening, then we got to be disruptive, unfortunately. And you know what? Maybe he's right. But here's the point. Republican lawmakers in Tennessee have voted once again to silence State Representative Justin Jones, a black Democrat from Nashville, Tennessee, who was previously expelled from the House. I beg your pardon. Then re-elected to office for leading protests against gun violence. So this started off with a mass shooting that occurred in Nashville. The people got aroused and they said, you know, look, y'all legislators ban guns. They said, no, we America, you got to be able to walk around with a machine gun. They said no. So they went backwards and forwards on this matter. Eventually, they expelled three Democrats, from who were elected because they brought the demonstration into the legislative assembly. Okay, so now I'm hoping that everyone understands what's going on. On Monday, Jones was barred by the Republicans from speaking for the remainder of the day after he made critical remarks about a bill to bring more police officers into Tennessee schools. So obviously he did not agree with that bill. Well, I think he has a right to not agree with the bill. But here we go. After protesters in the House gallery erupted into chants of fascists and racists, Republicans ordered state police to remove the public, including the parents of students who died from gun violence. This is State Representative Justin Jones speaking from outside Tennessee's Capitol building just after he was silenced. Mr. Representative Jones said, and I quote, "What we're seeing is this misapplication, this abuse of rules under the leadership of Speaker Cameron Sexton. Members of the public were taken out of the gallery. I was told I was going to be silent. Our caucus walked out in solidarity with the public that was expelled from the room because what's happening is not democratic. It is authoritarianism. It is very troubling what we're witnessing here. You can see that the Capitol is surrounded. You know, by troopers, you see in all this army with weapons, and this does not look like a Democratic Party body anymore. Before he was silenced, Representative Jones had been planning rather, excuse me, to force a vote of no confidence in the leadership of Cameron Sexton, the Speaker of the Tennessee House of Representatives. He, by the way, Representative Representative Jones is 28 years old. Okay, U.S. aquifers are running dry, posing a major threat to drinking water supply. This is, I think we all turn on the tap and want to drink some water. Listen to this. A major New York Times investigation reveals how the United States aquifers are becoming severely depleted due to overuse, in part from huge industrial farms and sprawling cities. The Times reports that Kansas corn yields are plummeting due to a lack of water. There is not enough water to support the construction of new homes in parts of Phoenix, Arizona, and rivers across the country are drying up as aquifers are being drained far faster than they are refilling. It can take millions of years to fill an aquifer, but they can be depleted in 50 years. So this really, if I'm going to give you, and I'm going to deliver news that you can use, we have to define what is an aquifer. Because I can tell you what, I didn't really understand exactly what an aquifer was. So let me answer that question. An aquifer is a body of rock and or sediment that holds groundwater. Groundwater is the word used to describe precipitation that has infiltrated the soil beyond the surface and collected in empty spaces underground. So what is an aquifer? It's kind of a natural reservoir.
Wow.
You see? And like when you drill a well on your property, right? When you drill a well, what you do is you go down. So once you go down, let's say 100 feet, you can hit an aquifer, that is fresh water. Now, what could be depleting this? What could be weakening this? I can tell you, these industrial farms. So for instance, it's one thing, I was raised, all right, I visited my grandfather's farm between the ages of, let's say, 4 and 10 years old. Every summer, my folks sent me down south. And I thought that it was kind of good because I learned how to work. But I learned about, we had chickens. So one of my jobs was, 1, to feed the chickens, and 2, to sweep up their little shit. You had to sweep up the little chicken shit. Well, one of my other jobs was to bring water to the cows, okay, and to feed the cows and the horses. Well, we had a well, and basically you drop the bucket into the well, and then you pull it up, and then you got it, okay. Well, that's how we did that. So, but understand, this was a relatively small farm. This was my grandfather's farm. Now today, So we had maybe 5, 6 hogs. We had maybe 4 cows. Now today, they have thousands of hogs on these factory farms. And so they use a lot more water. And then now today, we had corn. So if it was dry, mostly, you know what happened? When it rained, it rained on the corn, that was good enough. Now today, we have droughts. So they take the natural drinking water and then they pour it all over the corn. And now the farms are much bigger, much bigger. So now I'm hoping that all of this will, explain to you what an aquifer is and why our aquifers are being depleted by factory farms, by huge amounts of chickens and hogs and cows that are on these farms. Okay, next. Denver to pay 4.7 million to settle police brutality claims of Black Lives Matter activists. In Colorado, the city of Denver has reached a 4.7 million settlement with more than 300 Black Lives Matter activists who were brutally arrested by police in the summer of 2020. The settlement was unanimously approved by the Denver City Council, siding with protesters who said police violated their First Amendment rights. The class action lawsuit accused Denver police of using violent tactics against hundreds of protesters to enforce a curfew enacted in response to the massive racial justice actions following the police murder of George Floyd in Minnesota. Protesters described Denver police firing tear gas, flashbang grenades, pepper balls, rubber bullets, and other projectiles without giving them any time to disperse. 4.7 million. I hope they enjoy it. Well, let's move on. Dozens of states consider bills barring Chinese entities and citizens from buying land. Oh, yeah. It's puzzling. It's puzzling. Amid mounting U.S.-China tensions, lawmakers in 33 states have introduced legislation this year to prohibit Chinese entities and even Chinese citizens from buying agricultural land and property near military bases. A dozen of those bills have passed into law, including Florida's controversial SB 264, which has been challenged by a group of Chinese citizens who cited violations of the Fair Housing Act. The Washington Post reports that while most of the legislation making its way through state houses also name countries like Iran and North Korea, China is the clear target. Rights groups and some political leaders say such restrictions will further stroke anti-Asian sentiment. There is ignorance out there that causes people to think that because you are Chinese, you are a part of the Chinese government. Former Texas State Representative Martha Wong told the Post. And don't you remember when people were attacking elderly citizens? This is America. So now I want to counterpose to that this story. In Beijing, commerce chief touts U.S. trade ties with China. U.S. Commerce Secretary Gina Ramaldo is in China for a 4-day visit aimed at reducing tensions over Taiwan. Speaking from Beijing after a meeting with her counterpart on Monday, Ramaldo said the Biden administration wants to maintain a stable economic relationship with China and more than 700 billion of mutual trade rather, between the U.S. and China. Commerce Secretary Gina Ramaldo said, and I quote, the vast majority of our trade and investment relationship does not involve national security concerns. And in this regard, I am committed to promoting trade and investment in those areas that are in our mutual best interests. So recently, Kissinger, who was 100 years old damn near, he went to China. He said, no, they didn't mean all that. Oh, that just talk. They just trying to rile the American people up. This is hypocrisy, is what it is. China ain't studying these simple ass racists. They ain't studying them, and they just keep growing and flowing. So now we're going to let's play that beautiful song, "The People's Mind." Hello. We're gonna put you on the air.
You want it?
No.
This is not. Oh, this is. Here, you can use my phone to call him. You know his number. We can call him. His
Okay,
number's
well,
right in there.
hold on. We're trying to get ourselves together here. All right. So we're gonna call you again. But did you write this number down?
Yeah, hold on. Let me.
Don't hang up just yet.